Alright, well, haven't really gotten making this video yet, but I imagine it's going to be titled something like TIII Reliant? And basically the answer is yes and no, or sort of. So for those of you who are familiar with what a TIII is in the turbo Dodge world, the TIII was a Chrysler 2.2 liter engine, but the one that set it apart from the T1 and the T2 and even the T4, not to confuse you, is that it had a 16 valve head designed by Lotus that was a little bit different. Other than the head, there's some minor differences, forged internals. But anyway, that's what the head looked like on a TIII engine. A TIII engine was only available in the United States on the 91 and 92 Dodge Spirit RT. Me and my nephew have owned a couple of them. Actually, he owned them. I've worked on many of them and driven them, but he's had, I don't know, 5 or 6 of them, including a real nice example now. He's got a nice example of a red 91. And they were also on the 92 and 93 Daytona IROC RTs. So stock from the factory, they were 224 horse, I believe 217 on the torque, and it's a 7,000 RPM motor. They're a great motor. Some of them have a bad reputation. There's guys who had problems with timing belt issues, which really comes down to it being tensioned properly, and they were somewhat known for cracks in the aluminum head, which was partially because from the factory, those freeze plugs, those 3 of them you can see there, 1, 2, 3, they were steel, so the dissimilarity of metals when it heats and expands, but also they were over torqued from the factory. I think there was something like 75 or 80 foot-pounds, which was definitely excessive. So in our experience and what we've messed with these engines, they're actually great motors. Never really had any major concerns. So what I'm thinking here is the TIII engine should be going in, and you can just barely see the Reliant down there, should be going in the Reliant, and I want to do it right. But my nephew, he bought a parts car prior to the 91 Spirit RT that he has now, and it turned out that it was going to be a little bit more work than it was worth because of rust issues, etc. So he sold off a bunch of parts, still had the engine. We knew that the engine didn't run. Got digging into it, long story short, got the engine over here. When you had the head off and you turn the crank, you could see 3 pistons moving. That is usually a great indicator that there is a major problem with the engine. So we expected there to be a broken connecting rod. And as you can see, which you probably noticed as soon as I started the video, here is the connecting rod for cylinder number 4. That's a major issue. So now we got to figure out if this engine is going to be worth salvaging, or what parts are going to be worth salvaging. And I'm going to start recording the tear down of it here. Maybe give you a little montage of that. Let's see where we're at. Stay tuned. Allen shafts. Yikes. That's not good. Hopefully that's focusing. That's the cap for number 3 main bearing. All right, so why don't we look at what the real problem is here. Number 4. Hopefully that's showing up on video. Yeah, I think it's showing it. See, I guess what I was hoping for was anytime you got a broken connecting rod, you know you're going to have damage. I suppose I was kind of hoping that it was going to be just a little scuffed up. We'd be able to get it machined, get it cut, and salvage it. Because it's a really stout crankshaft that they put in this thing. But depends on who you talk to. A lot of guys will tell you, they'll say that the non-forged, the cast ones that they use in the other engines are plenty stout, unless you're doing something really, really crazy. But it still would have been nice to have been able to salvage it. So at this point, I'm thinking that's not going to happen. All right, so now that it's out of the engine, you can get a little bit better look at it. It actually looks overall pretty damn good, except of course for that journal on number 4. Let's see if we can get this rotated. Look at that. Yeah, that's trashed. I mean, I don't think even if you cut that, well, hell, what do they typically do? 20 thousandths? I don't think they usually go much more than that, maybe 30. I don't think that's going to be enough. So maybe that leaves the possibility of, if you got to go to a different crank anyway, the forged 2.2s are hard to come by. Maybe just go to a 2.5 and make a stroker out of it. The good pistons, the Vinolia pistons, are the same money, whether they're for the 2.2 in an oversized or for a 2.5 stroker. Plus, because cylinder number 4, this guy, the piston was shot anyway, so it's not like... That's interesting, huh? I got cut like that. Okay, so now I see what the problem is here. Aside from the obvious, piston number 4 at some point when it grenaded must have found itself in a position where the crank shoved it up even further, like almost tried to shoot it up out of the cylinder, which is probably where you got that bend in it, where it folded over after it broke. Line up perfectly with the chamber design here. So it looks like it didn't really do anything to the head, but I mean, obviously, of course, we're gonna have to look at that super close and figure out what. Real quick before I go, I thought we'd just look at the block here quick. I actually cleaned out the cylinders a little bit, and they look pretty decent. I mean, there's some slight scuff and wear marks, but nothing crazy. So, and obviously, biggest concern would be cylinder number 4 because of the catastrophic failure there, but it really doesn't look any worse for wear than the other cylinders. So I think that's about it for today, huh? Bad news, but it's all right. We'll get through it. We'll figure something out.